Okay, we should be going live. There we are. Can anybody see me? That's the question. Yes, there I am. Okay, cool. Everything's tickety-boo. Oh, it's a beautiful day for a live stream. Hopefully nobody can hear the very heavy traffic going on outside my house this morning. The Mighty Moose, hello. Hey, Ian Wright, how's it going? Hey, Gerald. Hello, Kenneth. Beautiful day today. Audio sounds great. Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, it's not too bad here. I just chopped down a bunch of trees out the front of the property that were like shading everything. Howdy, howdy. Robomonkey, Old Gabe, Nazil, Anthrax, hehehe. Jam the Ooze, nice to see you. Come on, how's it going? So today we're going to be talking about the astral plane, or the Astral Sea, and it's interesting because a lot of people didn't play 4th edition, and I did. I'm what you call a brand loyalist Dungeons and Dragons player. I played all the way from basic 1st edition, 2nd edition, 3rd edition, 3.5, 4th, D&D next, 5th edition, and I'm playtesting the D&D 1 D&D right now. You're just about to run a Spelljammer campaign featuring Lacal and Atropos. Ooh, in parallel roles. Nice. It's nice over in New Mexico, US. Good, good. Glad to hear it. The shape of the microphone is unfortunately suggestive. Well, it's a Yeti microphone that's in the form of a mimic. So if that looks suggestive to you, you've got some strange tastes, my friend. Good morning, and good afternoon, and good evening. No matter the edition, you'll always come through with a natural 20. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm a brand loyalist, so I like all of the editions of the game. I don't think any is any particularly, they're all evolutions of each other. So they all have their flaws, they all have their merits. And unarguably, 5th edition is the most popular. That has driven the brand to mainstream media more than anything else. So, well, it's not controversy from the 1990s. So, yeah, it's all good. Hello from Ireland. From a former Wellingtonian. Hey, how's it going? Grinner. See a few people from the Discord chat in here as well. Keep up the great work. Yeah, I will, man. Always. You keep watching my videos, I'll keep making them. So I've got a script here. This was the next video that I'm going to be uploading. I'm going to be recording the script after this live stream, and then you'll see this probably pop up in the morning or the evening for you. And it is about the Starlight Apparition from Boo's Astral Menagerie from the latest D&D box set of Spelljammer. But the origin of the Starlight Apparition actually goes back to the Astral Searcher in 1st edition AD&D Fiend Folio, and then the Monstrous Manual pretty much straight after that, next edition. And there's a lot of marked changes, and there's some interesting things that they've done with the Starlight Apparition, which you could arguably say they nerfed the hell out of it, because they've only shown you the most rare and beneficial form of an astral apparition, which gives me a great opportunity to bring you all the other lore, including a really, really horrific version that I gleaned from the Creature Codex from Kobold Press and made a few changes to it. Yeah, and also in your videos, you're going to see me using a lot more AI-generated artwork, because it's the new technology that YouTubers have available to us. And it's, yeah, it's cool. Just going to pop my screen over to viewer activity here so I can see any super chats that pop up, because they're really important. me just pop out the chat here so I can read everybody's stuff without looking like I'm looking off to the side all the time. Do you pronounce it GIF or GIF? I pronounce it GIF, obviously. I mean, you could argue however you want. You could call it GIF if you think they're like giraffe, but they're not really. They're hippos. Yeah, Bree has chewed the mic cover. Yeah, as cats do. How big of a cut does YouTube take out of super chats? I think it's about 15%. New gods born in the astral sea. Yeah, they are. They're born in the outer reaches. So theoretically, if you travel through the eternities of the astral plane, you're eventually going to reach the border zone of the outer planes. And these are not like the border zones going into wild space. They're similar, but yeah. The astral plane is like the ethereal plane in that the silvery void that you go through as you're transitioning from wild space into the astral plane itself is it's a border area. But also wild space is a border area of the astral sea as well. That's why you have pushback from astral mist, essentially, that is causing your Spelljammer ship to have an air envelope and a gravity field, a subjective gravity field. Because it's not like space, so it's definitely something else. So wild space is part of the astral plane as well, kind of thing. That has interesting implications, and one of the questions that has been popping around social media is that how can it prevent anything from the astral sea coming in and rampaging through normal planets and stuff like astral dreadnoughts and stuff? Well, it's always been the case that if you are an astral entity and you're just composed of astral stuff, like the Maruts and the astral dreadnoughts and all sorts of other celestial beings and things like that. Well, not celestial beings, but stuff that lives in the astral plane permanently. They can't exist in the material plane without a living body to protect them. That's why you have the silver cord connecting you to your body if you project yourself as a spirit going into the astral plane. So yeah. There's a fairly simple explanation there. And you could say that wild space is like a buffer zone where some things can survive for a short amount of time, but they will basically just wink out of existence because the astral plane is a realm where thoughts become manifest. And that's the other interesting thing about the astral apparitions is that some of them are from living beings that have been cut off from their silver cord and left to drift in the astral sea. Some of them are projected souls from the afterlife, like Starlight Apparition from the upper planes, but there's also escapees from the lower planes, and there's also things that, like, if you're a mage and you're paranoid and fearful of being captured by the Githyanki and you see something that looks like a Githyanki ship and you freak out, your emotions can manifest as a physical living entity in the astral plane called an astral apparition as well. And those are different as well, but they can also somehow find a way occasionally back into the prime material plane by possessing the body of somebody else, particularly astral travelers who have tussled with one of these things and lost, and it's gone back into their body back in the prime material plane, and people don't know about it. They just think that that person has lost their memory, and yeah, the other person, the original soul, can be stuck in their body for a very long time, much like being possessed by a ghost. But in actual fact, it's hard to exorcise them because they're not an undead. So that doesn't work. So you have to use circle of protection from good and circle of protection or protection from good and evil to kick them out of the body. So it's a very good idea if you're dealing with the astral plane to have those spells available all the time. Yeah, it's deep stuff. Do I have any views on how to rescue old model planes? I do, but I'm not really a crafting channel, and there's probably people with better advice. One of the big problems with rescuing old model paints is that your coverage is going to be messed up. The emulsion of your paints is really going to be messed up unless you use like solvents and oils and things to restore it. It's almost like building your own paint again. Hey, Saluin. Hey, Kikas. Thank you. If you didn't want your gods in a setting to require belief in portfolios for them to exist, what other ways could you handle that? The main thing is that they gain their power from the outer planes, so the astral realms, and they can basically create their own worshippers, just like Lakal created their own race in the form of the Quam. So a god can have their own power base. Now, the interesting thing about the whole worshippers thing is that some gods don't operate really like that at all. A lot of the gods, and you'll get a lot of this information from, I draw a lot from On Hallowed Ground, from it's a Planescape supplement, and it's really, really good. This is Colin McCombs. Yeah, it gives you all the information on like petitioners and all that sort of stuff. What happens if a petitioner dies outside of its home plane? It dies. And you know, all the different transactions of souls and stuff like that, and moving through the astral plane and all that sort of stuff is covered in this book really thoroughly. So there's a lot of resources from that, which is actually a second edition Planescape supplement. So there's a lot of these things which are answered in this book here, which a lot of second edition Spelljammer and Planescape players should know. But the Astral Sea has been a part of 4th edition, and it was really well explored, and there's lots of dangerous and nasty things. The main thing that to take away from 4th edition, aside from all the rules, mechanics and stuff like that, put that aside for a second. We're not talking about those. We're talking about the background and the lore of 4th edition, how it differed. So it moved away from any existing campaign setting planet, and it went to the world of Narath, which is in a parallel prime-material plane where there's different arrangements of the gods. There was a different origin story of the gods in the Dawn War, and there were different angels and archons and things like that were similar but different. Like there were angelic conduits in the Astral Sea where the angels could travel at hyper speed from one place to another. So they were already thinking about the Astral Sea as a conduit transitive plane that the gods and celestials and infernal powers use to get around the multiverse and get around between the different planes of existence. And the idea that Astral Dreadnought's been created by Tharizdun to collect up all of the lost souls that form that shouldn't be there and deliver them back to the gods that put them in the right places, or just basically swallow them up and then regurgitate them in the ethereal plane. So what happens if you get killed in the astral plane is you're basically getting slingshot into the ethereal plane immediately, because that's where dead souls go. The astral plane is for living souls, living entities. And when you get into the ethereal plane, basically the fugue plane inside the ethereal plane pulls you like a really strong bungee cord current. And you get pulled away into the fugue plane. The fugue plane, you get sorted into your proper houses by the sorting hat, and then you go to Slytherin or Celestia or Dumbledore or Hades, if that makes sense. So there is a very logical system to the way everything works, and the Astral Dreadnoughts were supposed to collect up lost souls and stuff and deliver them where they're supposed to go. But the god that was in charge of those, Tharizdun, god of barriers and entropy, got locked away by the other gods because he went a little bit crazy, because he realized that everything was teetering on the brink of being reset by spellweavers all the time, and he wanted to fix it. He wanted to destroy the multiverse and recreate it. Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks for all of this. Roll high and die well. Yeah, chill. Cool. Small Gods by Terry Pratchett, yeah. Pan, the god of creatures that die with a squeak. Does taking a rip before tossing the dice count as rolling high? Yes, it does. Funnily enough, Dumbledore is one of your patron powers. Why not? I have done a video on petitioners. I probably will redo that. I don't think I did it particularly well because petitioners was just not a hot topic at the time, but it certainly should be now, because petitioners are something that you will encounter in the outer planes all the time. Petitioners essentially are the arrived souls in the upper planes that turn into lantern archons, that turn into and angels get selected from the ranks of archons and stuff. So it's all about rank and servitude and hierarchy in Celestia. Other planes of existence, it's different. It's all about service and steady meditation of the higher powers and mysteries. Other planes of existence with gods like Moradin and other gods like that, the goal of the petitioners is actually to become the ideal of their alignment, so they become the most lawful good. And others, well, they combine the end objective is to become as their god, and they basically merge with the god. So a lot of gods, the reason why they've got all these different avatars and things like that is they're literally made up of millions and millions of different souls. So they're a gestalt. No, I don't have any problem with anybody naming a god of knowledge after me. That's fine. Your table, your game. It's all good. You liked the petitioner video. Good. I'm great. I'm glad. Yeah, so I did cover petitioners, and I did a fairly thorough job of it, I think. But yeah, there's a lot of misinformation about the Astral Sea, which is going around the internets right now. Like a lot of misinformation is being willfully spread around by people because they're grumpy about change, essentially, and that's fine. I mean, play your editions and stuff, but the vast majority of players these days are new to the hobby. They outnumber the old players by a huge margin, and they need information that's useful to them and not just negative. It's really, really damaging the hobby. And I've lived through how those sort of negative things damaged the hobby before. They almost killed it. And so I'm very, very vehemently defending any new material because it's good. And I played right through 4th edition, and I'm really glad that they're bringing a lot of this stuff into 5th edition. And it's like the people who are old edition fanatics are so laser focused on them faithfully recreating the stuff from 2nd edition that they're missing the fact that a lot of stuff from the previous edition, 4th edition's its lore and all of the goodness from that is put in there as well, and they're just not paying any attention to that whatsoever, like it doesn't exist. And so I think the best thing that you could do is if you've got somebody that's giving you all sorts of advice about how the astral plane sucks and it's not complicated enough and ship combat doesn't work and all that sort of stuff, ask them about some 4th edition lore. If they don't know it, switch off that radio, go somewhere else to somebody who knows and who's actually a brand loyal D&D player who's up to speed with the current edition. They're not. They're 30 years ago. 30 years ago. So come to me. I'll see you right. And I'm quite happy in saying that because these guys are being vehemently trolling just about every social media platform I've been on, and I'm actually angry. I'm very angry with them because they're confirming all of the stereotypes that people have about the grognard players and gatekeeping and neckbeards and stuff like that. They're coming out of the woodwork in numbers that I've never seen before, and it's because we've got the temerity to bring them the IP that they want. We didn't have to have Spelljam. We don't have to have Planescape. This is brand new stuff for new players of the game. And this is Dungeons & Dragons basically catering and giving you a complete and unified world theory of the D&D multiverse. Planescape and Spelljam were very disconnected back in the past and it didn't make any sense. Why would you Spelljam somewhere if you could just go through a planar portal? It's a lot easier to find a portal than it is to find a flying spaceship. Dark Sun, Dark Sun's coming up too. Dark Sun was completely disconnected. Eberron was completely disconnected. Those have been integrated back into the prime material plane. Somehow. Hey, Jeremy. Hey, Andreadith. Several times the behavior that killed the hobby on a whole in several systems. Hobbit was now on the soapbox for justice. Yeah, I am. I am very much on the soapbox for justice. I lived through, the worst years of RPG Net, where the message board forums were just horrible because of these guys. And I knew I've seen what you've done. I was there, Gandalf, 3,000 years ago in RPG Net, where you guys almost killed the hobby when TSR basically went out of business because you weren't buying any of the products. So don't tell me you're a brand loyalist. You let the hobby die. You let your parent company die, and their poor management and just not paying any attention to the market feedback. Like, for instance, Birthright. They put out shitloads of Birthright products and they were getting no sales. And so they just drove that right into the dirt. They had no money left because they invested in dice collecting games instead of card collecting games, because card collecting games was taking off and they thought dice would be the way forward. And then they had no money left to produce any products at all. So Wizards of the Coast came along and rescued the IP, and Hasbro, a couple of years after that, took it to the whole new level that we're at now. And sure, I mean, they got a lot of the stuff wrong with fourth edition, but I think Chris Perkins is now, he's on a path of redemption, and he's saying, look, no, there was a lot of good stuff in fourth edition. Forget about the skirmish mechanics and stuff like that. We're not catering to the wargamers anymore. This is the other thing that I'd like to say about fourth edition and the second edition Planescaper people who are complaining about Spelljammer not having all the ship combat rules and stuff. They tried giving you a miniature skirmish game in fourth edition. You sunk that real bad, so we're not going to give you that complicated rule set anymore. We're going to go with narrative play that encourages community, online play. It incorporates all sorts of different play styles a lot better. Dungeons & Dragons is not a miniatures war game anymore. Get that through your thick skulls. We're not looking for a war game. There's other games that do that a lot better. Star Wars, Warhammer 40k, Battlefleet Gothic, all that sort of stuff does it a lot better. Maybe, if you're very lucky, Hasbro will buy out Games Workshop and will have a collectibles miniatures box sets instead of the horrible condition they have with the miniatures and how they sell them and just way overprice them. Wizards of the Coast did miniature collectibles a lot better, and the skirmish game for those was a lot better than stuff that I've seen from Warhammer, just in the way that it was just generally accessible. And everybody's got big collections of pre-painted vinyl miniatures now, because they were great. Thanks, Moonring. Hey, AJ, can't say long, just helping my mum move. Have you heard of the Hadozi controversy? What do you think about it? What's the Hadozi controversy? That the fact that they've got a glide speed. Hey, Ben C, thank you. I own the Plane Above Below books for 5th edition. Very good. Yeah, they are very good. You can see over in the corner there, that's my collection of 4th edition books, just in case, yeah. I was there. I played the entire edition all the way through. Yeah, it would be nice to have a 5th edition lore book for the Ninth of Vale. What's happening on Narath, I wonder? Yeah, it's a parallel dimension. You hope they never get their claws on Games Workshop. It's inevitable, Stuart. It's inevitable that Hasbro will buy out that company because they're struggling. They are. I mean, they're sort of tippy-toeing into it by releasing a Warhammer 40k card set for Magic the Gathering. So that's definitely a line of communication between long-lost brothers. And let's not forget, Games Workshop was Dungeons & Dragons. It produced the Fiend Folio. It was going to produce all the miniatures for the UK and the European market for TSR, but TSR did the dirty on them essentially and went with Relpather and Grenadier and cut them out of the picture. So they had no choice but to create their own IP in the form of Warhammer Fantasy, which became Warhammer 40k. So the origins of Warhammer Games Workshop was Dungeons & Dragons, and of course Choose Your Own Adventure books. I wish I had a portable hole in real life. Yeah, I wish I had a bag of holding. Yeah, Tyranids and Magic the Gathering now. Yep. Interestingly enough, they haven't included Eldar or Orcs in that because it's too much of a crossover between, different IP. Maybe it would just be too confusing to have different types of Orcs. I don't know. Quite the grasping of straws. No, not really. Is there a 5th edition version of a Psionicist? Not really. No, I think 5th edition has dropped the ball there, and I hope we see something done with Psionics in the new iteration, whatever D&D becomes. Everybody's really triggered by me saying that they may buy out Games Workshop. Look, man. There's a lot of things which are D&D that fall under the category of D&D. Pathfinder is D&D. Fantasy Age is D&D. Lamentations of the Flame Princess is D&D. All of these things are Dungeons & Dragons. They're derivatives of it. They use different rule sets and things for a different vibe, but they're not violently different like Call of Cthulhu or Paranoia or Traveller or anything like that. They're all D&D. If you take away the rule books and take away the dice mechanics at the table and listen to what's going on, they're still playing Dungeons & Dragons. So, yeah. Wag. Everybody's going. Yeah. As Devil's Advocate, hey, I don't buy a 5e book expecting to need other systems to make certain rules playable. I honestly think another 32 pages would have made the Spelljammer books great. Maybe so, but I mean, you can't argue that that's like, you're arguing from a vacuum, assuming that nobody's got internet access or anything like that. It's so easily available. Like on my Discord server, for instance, I've got all the rules from Saltmarsh, and I've got all the rules from the Spelljammer. So you've got the complete set. I didn't put all the stuff from the DMG in there as well. But you could argue that nobody had a big hiss and bitch and moan about the ship combat rules in the Dungeon Master's Guide being pretty light. Did they? Did they? Did they? Did they? No, they didn't. So there was nobody playing Spelljammer, I guess, or playing ship combat. It's only now that we see these big bitching and moaning arguments. I wonder why. Because you don't really need it. You don't. If you're the focus on the ship combat rules in Spelljammer now is about players being effective in combat. It's not about a miniature skirmish game across a flat board. That's boring as hell. The facing of your ship. How many rounds is it going to be before we can get into weapons range? No. You want to have a ship as an encounter that the players are doing stuff on. You want objectives, like for instance, if they board that demon ship, they can shut down the crystals, which would force the demons to go back to the plane they came from. The Fiender ship has got a summoning circle on there, which provides them with soul energy, which allows them to manifest, spawn magical effects and things like that, which you're not going to be able to counter at close range. So the player characters are going to have to go over there at great risk to themselves before they put your own ship at risk. You don't want to get your ship blown up in the middle of space, so the player characters actually don't do anything on the ship. They get there before everything else does, because they can teleport, they can fly, they can glide, they can do that sort of stuff. So there's a lot more emphasis on players doing things, and the players' influence on the ship is all important. They can increase the armor, they can increase the speed, they can increase the firing accuracy of weapons, because they're officers, they're the movers and shakers on the ship. You know, you don't want to take away their agency, you want to give more of it to them. And if you want to play a miniature skirmish game, there's better ways to do it than the Spelljammer rules. The Spelljammer rules were 20 pages, which a new player, and the new players are telling you this in their videos and things where they're examining this stuff. They look at the old Spelljammer rules and they're like, ugh, I don't want to do this. And so many people who played Spelljammer were like, ugh, I don't like those rules either. I homebrewed the hell out of those. So did I. They were nasty. I was playing like Car Wars and other games that were much better, or Palladium books, for instance, did space combat a lot better, you know? And let's not forget that Spelljammer 2nd Edition was basically a rip-off of Space 1889, which nobody's ever heard of now, but was really popular at the time. And so basically D&D was ripping off other IP, much like the factions from Planescape were a rip-off of how popular Citizen Band Radio was, and the jargon from that. That's why they use all the weird language lingo that you're going to see. Wizard of the Coast, old school, they're going to say Burke and getting the thing and bloods and cutters and stuff like that. And new players are going to be like, what's this weirdness? It's based on CB radio chatter that was very popular at the time. The factions of Planescape are a direct rip-off from Vampire the Masquerade that was very popular at the time. So Dungeons & Dragons was ripping off other IP and made world settings for it, and they got D. Laterzi's work and made this really sort of, you know, it was had a vibe to it. So yeah, things are going to be dumbed down, and they're not going to explain what the origin of these things are. And the origin of the things is that they were ripping off of the other games desperately. So yeah, I was there. Yeah, like rules like Rogue Trader. Oh. Yep, my cat is around. Hey, Brie. She's gotten used to me shouting at the camera. Was the simplification of the Spelljammer ship combat based on the negative feedback from Ghost of Saltmarsh and Wizards of the Coast overdid the simplicity? No, I don't think they overdid the simplicity. You got to look at this in the fullness of time. We're only 2 years away from a new edition of the game, which is going to be backwards compatible with the Spelljammer box set. So one of the complaints is that in our current edition of the game, we've got edition creep, where important rule sets like the ship combat rules are in an adventure book, Ghosts of Saltmarsh. So if you don't want to play Ghosts of Saltmarsh, why would you have to pick it up just to get the rules from it for that? That sucks. So what they're doing is they're giving us a book which has got just the setting specific information about Spelljammer ships and things like that, but the ship combat rules should not be in there. They shouldn't be reprinted in every single thing that comes out. They should be in the new Dungeon Masters Guide that we're going to get in 2 years' time. Or, they should make it freely available or have a Dungeon Masters resource online, which everybody will be able to access the basic system document. But they need to work out what the basic system is going to be and what the arrangement and what the emphasis needs to be in the Dungeon Masters Guide through a year of feedback from us. So what we're arguing about is them fixing the next edition of the game in a product which is backwards compatible for it right now. Maybe they released Spelljammer a little bit early. I don't know. But this is going to be fixed in the fullness of time, and nobody's going to think about it in a couple of years' time. Everything's going to be radically different. Thanks, Damien. Have I missed a few? No. Dang, just got here. Did I miss anything good? Yeah, me ranting. Me ranting about the feedback. Yeah. Yeah, crappy vehicle combat in the Avernus book. Yeah, that was bad too. Basically, they wanted hell hot rods because Fury Road was very popular. Come on, people! Mad Max Fury Road was really popular, so they wanted a Fury Road scene in the Avernus book. So they gave us those combat rules. Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons doesn't exist in a vacuum. They're trying to grab the latest cool and throw it in there. They always have. Yeah, exactly. God, yeah, I hated it when Games Workshop put rules in White Dwarf magazine, so you had to buy White Dwarf to use those rules and troop types. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons was exactly the same. And Unearthed Arcana was almost a collection of Dragon magazine articles. The Duelist, for instance, I had to print that out from a Dragon magazine. Thank you, Stanchgate. Yeah, putting rules in world books is what Rifts does. Yeah. Edition creep. So you end up with this, if you're a completionist and collect all books and all editions like I do, it's not a problem. But, if you've skipped a whole edition of the game, then you're going to be woefully left behind. Yep, Joe Manganiello was really hot, so they put his Arkham crap in the Avernus book. We've got official... Matt Colville probably should have had his book made official as well, Kingdoms and Warfare. I think that was probably a better addition to the game than, let's see, Acquisitions Incorporated has some really interesting corporate rules and stuff and ways of having commercialized guilds and things like that, which should probably be examined and put into a main book somewhere, because that was really good stuff. I can't say much about Exandria. That's very setting specific, but that's a good example of a setting specific book where things stay setting specific. You don't have any main rules of the game in there, as far as I know. But I haven't really paid much attention to the Exandria rules because I'm not a Critical Role fan. I would be a Critical Role fan if I had the time to watch Critical Role, but I don't. So yeah, I can't like something I've never seen. Do you like the new 1D&D? Forrest, we haven't even seen, we've got 20 pages of what is potentially... Here's D&D Next, for instance. This is the final iteration of D&D Next. This is the playtest rules. As you can see, it's almost a complete rule set with monsters, magic items, spells, all that sort of stuff. It's 230 pages. So in the following, we've got 20 pages of 1D&D so far, and they put some controversial stuff in there, like the Critical Role rules, just to gauge what the reaction is going to be. And yeah, people have lost their minds because they're just completely unreasonable. These are not set in stone. These are options. So the furor that is being produced by it is just Wizards of the Coast dropping, just poking the bear and seeing what the trolls do. But people are being very, very unreasonable. And it's hard to kick back against it because it seems like that's the popular tide. It's not. That's not the general opinion. The negative feedback is not the general opinion. It's just the most vocal trolls on the internet who are spreading bullshit. And the people who are, saying, no, it's fine. We're getting drowned out by people. So I'm here to say, no, it's great. It's fine. This is going to be fantastic. It's going to be great. But this is the time where you need to give feedback. You need to get involved. Sort of shut off Twitter and Facebook for a little while and, Instagram or whatever, TikTok. And the company is listening to you. And they're getting to put out surveys that you need to get involved in. Because if you don't get involved, it's like in politics. If you don't vote, you don't have a say. So vote. Give your feedback when the survey comes along. Read the playtest material in a vacuum. Just switch off social media, look at it, read it, unbiased from your own opinion. And then when the survey comes along, give your opinion. Don't give a regurgitated opinion that you've read online somewhere. That's false. That's not true. Listen to me, maybe. I don't know. But I am biased as well. I'm positively biased for a new edition. Yeah, see? Yeah, Jeremy Crawford has said that the critical hits rules are just to test and see how people react. What would happen if spells couldn't crit? Let's find out. So yeah, they're basically just poking people saying, look, what do you think about this? And they've put one of the most controversial things in there first, along with some reasonably reasonable stuff. If anything, it's taken a lot of the emphasis away from the biological and heritage and cultural or background heritage and the way the attribute systems and stuff work. There's been a lot of pissing and moaning about that too, but I think that makes a lot more sense. We've been moving away from biological determinism in every edition of Dungeons and Dragons. Remember, in the first iteration of Dungeons and Dragons, it was basically just introducing the very simple concepts of miniatures on the table having statistics of their own. They weren't just a squad of something. They were individuals, right? So they were just introducing that idea, poking that idea at wargamers, because the player base were wargamers. And then as we went from there, slowly the restrictions on things got knocked away. So, at first you were a dwarf and that was your character class and that was your race as well. So you didn't have a choice in background. You didn't have a choice in character class. If you wanted to be a paladin, you could only be level 6. You could never get higher or something like that. I don't know this. I'm not giving the specifics, just the examples. Then we move away from that and we've still got level requirements and attribute requirements to become a cavalier or a paladin or something. You need to have 13 charisma and 15 constitution in order to be this class at all, and backgrounds were just slowly sort of sneaking into it. And then as we go further along, now you can be any sort of race and class combination, but your attributes are locked into your race and your background has nothing to do with that. So you've always got +2 strength because, I don't know, every single dwarf works out every morning. There's no such thing as a dwarf scribe or, a dwarf with cystic fibrosis. There's no such thing as a dwarf with growth defects. There's no such thing as a short human, with now we're moving away from that and saying, look, okay, sometimes humans are small. And that's like this. It's huge. It's huge. Humans can be medium-sized or small, just like in real life. What? There's no fucking controversy there. It's just the way it is. Yeah. So yeah, I'm passionate about this stuff because the trend has always been to move away from restrictions and to give more options. And I think it makes a lot more sense that your nurture and your upbringing, the culture that your character is born into, has a lot more influence on how they turn out as an adult, physically and mentally, than what their biological origin does. Their biological origin gives them those traits, those special features, like dwarves have, a certain sort of vision. They've got sort of tremor sense and stuff because they've had thousands of years of being adapted to that environment. But yeah, your attributes and things like that are how you were raised and what sort of profession you went into and things like that. Obviously, a blacksmith is going to have a higher strength than a scribe, or a wizard, unless you're like a buff wizard who, I don't know, works the forge to create magical items. Who knows? The weakest dwarf is the strongest human. Prerequisites are a good thing. Rules are what make D&D not just a kids level make-believe. Well, okay, so let's say, what's an example? One of the prerequisites that you can't really avoid is you'd need to be on that world to have that character class. So maybe if you're on Greyhawk, you can't be a Warforged. There's a restriction. Because it makes sense. But, they get around. Hey, Moonring. Do you think Ixazachytl could become a space clown? Also, space clown video when? Oh, I don't like clowns. I'm not going to make a space clown video. Don't expect that from me. I don't like space clowns. I make videos that I want to make. I don't like clowns. I hate clowns. I've had many life experiences with shitty clowns. So yeah, no, I just don't like clowns at all. I'm not scared of clowns. I just hate the entire tradition in which it would go away. Halfling on Kryn. Yeah. That's why I like GURPS character creation. It does take a little while to do compared to AD&D, but you get a very nuanced character. Yeah, like Traveller, for instance, the character creation is intimate. Like you could learn a lot about character creation and how you can integrate it and make a cohesive group and your place in your campaign world and build your world setting and your background into your characters. Traveller, you can't create a Traveller character separate and then go and take it and play the game. That's one interesting thing that like I discovered that D&D players are really bad at, and they just don't get it, that you need to do character creation as part of gameplay in Traveller, because you go through your career path, your character can get injured, the character can die, and it also builds a lot of your background resources, whether you have a spaceship, access to contacts, it can build up, you know, your entire lifestyle of your character is pre-built for you, and you're almost like an aged veteran when you start play in Traveller, and it was really, really interesting, and that's one of the earliest non-D&D RPGs. GURPS, of course, is one of the earliest, is the earliest megaversal system. So they integrated everything and all their rule sets and all their worlds and stuff right from the get-go. Dungeons and Dragons is just getting to that now. it's now heading in that direction now. And Palladium Books has always been a megaversal system where everything interacts with each other. So yeah, it's a teething issue. But I mean, it's a trend that everybody's going for. Thanks, Raw Cauliflower. Your videos are helping me homebrew my dark Spelljammer universe. Question is, did you say in one video that Tharizdun could just escape if he knew that he was trapped in a simulation, or was it a different god? You said maybe. He's also locked up with some very, very powerful enchantments and stuff, and these all these gems, like 333 different gems that you need to collect to break him out of his prison in the Deep Ethereal. The Deep Ethereal is just basically the doorway to Doctor Who's TARDIS. He's locked away in a sub-universe somewhere, very securely, or a part of him is. So not only would he have to escape from there, he'd have to reintegrate different parts of him, which had become their own deities, like Obox, Obnubelix, and all that sort of stuff are aspects of Tharizdun's psyche. Tharizdun was a very, if you ask old school players, they'd be like, oh, Tharizdun wasn't important, and in other regards, he was huge. I mean, the other gods couldn't kill him. So he wasn't relying on worshippers and stuff to be powerful. Dying in character creation is a thing, yeah, in Traveller. That's true. This is wow, Emiliano. Puffin did a video on Traveller? Yeah. Hey, Mike. Yeah, Traveller and Paranoia are very different vibe role-playing games. They're very much about, you know, a particular vibe. And Call of Cthulhu, you go into it with a particular vibe. And yeah, with Spelljammer and Planescape, those got a particular vibe to them too. So it's really interesting. But the important thing is that 4th edition, and this is what I was going to say before, 4th edition is grim dark. It's very different vibe from 5th edition. So the Spelljammer stuff that incorporates the Astral Sea lore from 4th edition is actually pretty nasty. Like the Quam arguably are a very nasty story and race, and they build a lot of tension and like background information that your character can get about Bahamut and what Bahamut did, you know, and things like that. And you've got this paragon of goodness and lore, Bahamut, who did this horrible thing to this race of people and has left this huge scar across the astral plane that could kill and cause mayhem and stuff. And what has he done to fix it? Nothing, you know. So yeah, it builds an interesting plot point that you can put into your game anywhere. They can show up anywhere. Thanks, Zytek. So is the astral plane, Astral Sea, the only plane you can just fly to instead of using a portal or magical device? Well, they haven't said that you can get there not on a Spelljammer. That's another thing that nobody has highlighted about the stuff. You can't just float into the astral plane, right? You got to be on a spelljamming ship. So maybe it's a property of the spelljamming helm itself that bypasses the barrier and lets you get in there. Because maybe it's churning through astral stuff to propel the ship. It's creating a field around the ships which create a static charge that the astral stuff pushes against. They haven't really explained that, but they haven't said that you can just drift into the astral plane by yourself. Have they? Have they? Have they? So you could just argue, no, that's a property of spelljammers. If you don't have a spelljamming ship, you can't cross over through the silvery void into the astral plane unless you're astral projecting. Yeah, it would be nice if the Spelljammer book described that. Yes, but do you want them writing your entire world setting for you, or do you want to have some creative leeway there yourself? If it's not clearly defined, you've got leeway to change up and homebrew. I mean, every single game is not rules as written. As soon as you start playing, everybody homebrews something. Everybody deviates from some part of the adventure that they don't like. Every player has a decision which takes you off the rails and goes in different directions. So yeah, there's got to be a lot of vague and leeway and stuff like that built into stuff as well. And I'm okay with that. Like classic hyperspace, yeah. Yeah, phlogiston is still there. It's just a different phase. Like, phlogiston didn't make a lot of sense because it wasn't applicable to anything else in Dungeons and Dragons. And really, it should have been. Should have been really important. But it wasn't. It wasn't phlogiston punk, And in 4th edition, they addressed the fact that, creatures and things were made by the gods out of astral stuff. The gods didn't want mortal beings going into the astral plane and then into the outer planes, because when you're in the astral plane, you can manifest things from your emotions that become real. And that can feed back into the prime material plane and royally fuck things up. So they didn't want that to happen. Tharizdun in particular did not want mortals going into the astral plane. They could cause huge amounts of problems and they could potentially kill gods, which they did. So yeah, the Githyanki should not be there, and there are other races in the astral plane, like the Shadu, for instance, are related to the Lamazu, who are very, very present in the ethereal plane, and the Shadu are very, very present in the astral plane. So if you encounter a winged lion-like, like a manticore sort of thing, that's probably a Shadu, and they're probably there to tell you, no, you need to get back onto the shipping lane. You're about to fly into a psychic storm. They're very helpful that way. They'll help grab petitioners who have strayed away from their plane of existence and take them back where they're supposed to be. It's not just angels that do that. There's a whole bunch of others. Archons are very, very active, making sure that souls don't escape from the lower planes into the astral plane and then go and predate on people, which they can do. Yeah, it's not all organized and hierarchical and everything. There's a lot of broken stuff there. The D&D multiverse has been shattered and re-put back together many times, and there's gaps in the system. Like let's say you're astral projecting and your silver cord gets cut by a Githyanki, your mortal body back on the prime material plane dies. You're now drifting around in the astral plane as a astral apparition. You then fall through the cracks and go into the ethereal plane, but you pop back out of the ethereal plane and you fall into the primal planes down below of the elemental chaos. You combine with elemental energy and become a genie. That's where genies come from. Genies are quite disruptive. The gods didn't want them to happen. One of the ways I like looking at all of this stuff is that it's a matter of vibrational attunement. So the astral plane is the upper planes are up here at a high vibration. They're high up in the astral sea, and sometimes they get pulled down. Like, for instance, the elves pulled down a part of Arvandor through like the Feywild and smacked it onto the world of Toril. That shouldn't have happened. It was massively disruptive. It slingshot. It did all sorts of terrible things to the timeline and stuff, and it made shockwave reverberations through the prime material plane, because it's supposed to bring a part of the astral plane, something that's not, that's imaginary. They made it real with song magic of extreme power. Even the gods have difficulty doing that sort of thing. So what happened on Toril was massively important. The Sundering was like a big wake-up call that the planes actually shift and move around, because beliefs change over time and the status of different things. Like Arvandor was a part of Olympia, And now it's sort of parallel to the Feywild, so it's very close by to the prime material plane. It's almost like it's drifted closer in the astral plane, and that the idea of all these planes being next to each other in a nice ring or a tree or something like that are just subjective. The planes of existence don't exist like that. Arvandor is right on Toril. It's just at a different vibrational attunement that has shifted or changed somewhat. So, you know, when the gods get more active and involved in the thing, maybe their vibration shifts to becoming more material and less ethereal, or less imaginary. So it could be that the wild space pockets that you have were the primordials reaching up from the lower planes of existence, you know, the elemental planes, into the upper reaches of imagination, and literally just pulling together astral stuff in mass quantities to create worlds and then destroy them as they will. That they were just willy-nilly creating and destroying things because they had huge, unlimited amounts of power. The gods were a byproduct of belief from living things manifesting in that stuff that the primordials were pulling and creating stuff. And they said, no. We need stability here. We need these things that you've created to stay there. Otherwise, our existence is under dire threat. And also, you're disrupting the stuff which makes us exist. So they were automatically, chaos and law were at loggerheads with each other. So it makes sense that the astral plane is pocketed with all of these holes of creation because they're a remnant of a war between law and chaos, primordials and deities. It makes sense. And if you look at it that way, you're like, huh, okay. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, the phlogiston real world theory, don't even go there. Lamazu, oh, thanks. Sphinx is a human head, lion body, eagle-like wings. Lamazu is a human head, bovine body, and angelic wings. And the Shadu is lions with angelic wings. Thank you, Sir William. I can always rely on you, man. You're great. Could epic level dragons complete with primordials? Yeah, the primordials are not like, they're all sorts of different primordials. You can have very low level primordials, and you have really, really powerful primordials. And you have ones which were manipulated by other gods, like the princes of elemental evil, for instance, are different from other primordials. How would I fit astral exodacial into Spelljammer? Well, they could be. It's tricky. I like the idea of a water ship, a sea ship. So they create a submarine full of water to travel through the Astral Sea. That would be cool. So a spelljamming submarine full of exodatils. That's just cool. And they make like spacesuits where they literally are flying like attack ships. That would be cool. I blame the youth for the changing of the planes, their new age living. Could you explain the thing that you said once about a person being resurrected and then they'd be able to meet their own ghost? Yeah, that's possible. So a ghost is a ethereal echo. So it's not necessarily a soul. It's almost like you can manifest a thought or an emotion or a memory in the astral plane. You can also do that in the ethereal plane, because the ethereal plane is a place where memory goes. So the border ethereal plane is not an exact replica of the world that you see around you. So, for instance, if this bookshelf behind me had been here for 50 years, and then I moved it, it would be a while in the ethereal plane before the structure of that built-out material of the ethereal plane slowly faded away. But you could go into this is what the idea of ethereal archaeology, right? You could go into the ethereal plane, find that bookshelf, pull out the books, and read them, even though the books have been destroyed back in the material world. How cool is that, right? You can put that into your campaign right now. I'm a wizard that specializes in arcane archaeology. How do you do that? Well, I go into the ethereal plane and I find things which no longer exist. I have a collection of these stabilized artifacts from the ethereal plane. Whoa! I also collect ghosts. Plotline from 13 Ghosts movie. Demons are corrupt primordials. Yep. they're essentially. It would be an awesome subclass. Embrace these ideas, and they just give you resources for the game. Stick to old stuff, and you don't get any of these new ideas. You can't incorporate new stuff into old edition stuff as well, I think. And there's a lot more agency for players, and the narrative focus is the whole point of 5th edition, because we're dealing now with people playing over online games, almost more. I'd say probably there's more online games than there are physical games of Dungeons and Dragons now. So the focus on narrative stuff has been very important. Critical Role, the popularity of that has been the emphasis on poignant emotional moments and a very heavy emphasis on player agency. And so you've got a vast audience of new players to the game who are attracted to the game because of that. So if you give them war game rules, they're going to fall flat. They're not interested in that. They're only interested in what they see and experience of Dungeons and Dragons as it is as a modern living hobby right now. And so, this slavish nostalgia that didn't really exist back in the day, which is now somehow sacred cow of the old edition players, is really just an excuse for gatekeeping. I'm sick and tired of it. So enough of that. I'm just going to give you positive and useful resources for you to use. You can play whatever edition you want. I don't care. Just don't come rampaging into the new edition forums and stuff and talking about the new stuff and just shit all over it all the time. That's just not welcome, and it's not cool. It's not cool. You want an ectomancer? Yes, it's a great concept. And the same thing with the astral plane. So the astral plane, when a character gets resurrected, right, they get slingshot out from the outer reaches of the outer planes through the astral plane through a conduit, and then in that border silvery region, that's where these memory crystals are located. And the memory crystals crystallize memories of their past life. They collect that as they go through, and they get slingshot into their body, and they forget everything, like passing through the Feywild. They forget everything that happened in the afterlife, and they've picked up all their memories from their mortal life halfway through, and then bam, they arrive back in their body. What happened in the intervening time? And they remember who they were and everything. I was like, blah, I woke up. What happened? Was I dead? Yeah, you were. They could have spent years and years in the outer reaches. But here's the important thing. That can only happen for petitioners. Petitioners are only petitioners for a certain amount of time. And that really is dependent on your alignment in many ways. Like if you're in Mount Celestia, you spend not that much time as a petitioner, probably like, I don't know, a few hundred years or so. And then you may turn into a Lantern Archon. And as soon as you turn into a Lantern Archon, you are now a resident of that outer plane, made of the stuff of that outer plane, and now that's your home plane. So if you project into the astral plane and you get killed, you get slingshot back and you reincarnate back in Celestia. That's your home plane now. You can no longer be resurrected back on Earth. Just won't happen. You're no longer that person, that petitioner. But petitioners don't have any memory of they've only got vague memories of what they were in life, because their alignment and attitude is what is important. Their spirit is not their memories per se. Their memories are sort of left behind as they travel through. So they're stripped away from that soul, left behind, floating in the astral plane where they should be, place of imagination and memory and imagination and belief and stuff. And yeah, they go through that. It's left behind there. And so you can actually find these memory crystals. In some cases, you can collect the wrong memory crystal on the way back through and wake up reincarnated with somebody else's memories. See you, Moonring? Yeah. I got the new Spelljammer and was ready to hate it, but it's actually pretty good. Yeah. When the reality of the situation, like when the rubber hits the road and you pick up the new book and you go, oh, it's actually pretty good. The artwork's great. Yeah. I mean, I love the artwork of the astral plane and stuff like that, the silvery void and traveling through it and the misty things and the vistas and the psychic storms and these great monsters and things and the floating Githyanki god cities and yeah. Githzerai monasteries manifesting, Yeah, it's fantastic. You still want to play a Jabberwocky Dragonborn? Yeah, you could. Yeah, the artwork is good. Hey, look, there's friggin' Paco. I wish they did ship-to-ship combat. Nobody cares. Space whales, yeah. How does spell combat? How does combat on two competing space whales? Two mating space whales. Oh. Just find them a little lacking. Oh. Yeah, in the fullness of time. I mean, if you find them lacking in rules, go and pick up all the rules that are just being flooded across the internet right now. If you don't have access to the ship rules from Ghost of Saltmarsh and the DMG, are you on a Casio calculator right now? What is your internet access like? You need to go and join some Discords or some message boards and stuff like that, and just get handed that stuff to you. And Wizards of the Coast, if you're listening, you're probably not, but if you are, just put it out as a free PDF download or resource on D&D Beyond. You own it now, so do it. It's clearly causing problems, so just go for it. Your Spelljammer isn't safe. No. You want to eat a space whale? Oof, Stanchgate. Bad take. They probably taste absolutely awful. I don't think the space whales are probably don't taste good. Yeah, the Navy Combat Unearthed Arcana is still available. Exactly. How's the time going? Well, time is up. It's been an hour. Wasn't that fast? Didn't get a lot of specific questions about it, but would lightly fried gift taste good? I imagine probably tastes like pork. Artificers of Spelljammer would be awesome, yes. Hey, Kickass. New stuff is great, but making people buy books twice, I can't jive with that. You're not being forced to buy books twice. I just addressed this. You don't have to buy the book. If you haven't liked the vid, roll initiative. People say rats probably don't taste good, but has anyone tried one? Well, in Mali, it's very common to eat mice. It's more like a side street food. A lot of people eat rats around the world. Oh, I was wondering what the hell you were writing there, Sirloin. And then I saw, you were making a Casio calculator joke. That was hilarious, by the way. AJ's next live stream. What AD&D races taste like? Mostly chicken. For D&D Beyond, yeah. If I did have a suggestion for Wizards of the Coast right now, it would be to give an integrated ship rules and maybe reprint the whole ship combat rules from second edition Planescape, so people can compare the two and actually form their own opinions without getting them handed to them on social media, because it's clearly they're getting very, very biased opinions. Yeah, infernal chicken tastes like chicken. Halflings are delicious. Yeah, it's true. I am actually delicious. I'm part halfling myself. If you scratch me, I smell like cookies. It's true. I do taste absolutely fantastic. Should Thaco make a comeback in 1 D&D? Yeah, put that in the next survey. In fact, just for every survey, put something in there which the old edition trolls are going to have an absolute field day on social media, and the rest of us can just get on with doing the job and making the game better. Distract all the trolls and online pundits and all the negative wave YouTubers who are catering to all this crap. Yeah, I'm not. I'm not. I'm just going to keep putting out resources that you can use and integrating lore from every edition of the game, because I love every edition of the game. I love Dungeons and Dragons in its entirety. And if I can find stuff that you haven't seen yet, that's great. And there's a lot of stuff that they haven't put into Spelljammer for 5th edition, which just gives me a great opportunity to bring that for you. I'm overjoyed. Wizards of the Coast is just handing me work to do. It's fantastic. I've never had more of a workload for a supplement before. Dire halfling roasted or boiled. Doesn't Don't know. Probably roasted. Yeah. Actually, put me in a hungy. Bury me in the ground with some hot rocks in a sealed, steaming container. It tastes fantastic. Boulet bites made with real halfling. Roasted. Yeah. Roasted is the general agreement. Roasted with some root vegetables, some cupcakes, some nice little, some crackling with some crackleberry jam, crab cakes, maybe some sun-dried tomatoes, but a tapas menu. Typical, halfling Christmas fare. Jellied? No, not really. Some damper and treacle? Yeah. Anyway, okay. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good week. I'll see you soon. And look for the upload on the Astral Apparitions very, very soon.